Welcome to Courtney on Health, heard non-exclusively on malcolmpresents.com and
Yeah,
on
it's all over the place.
it's,
We'll
it's all
tell
it's
you
all
where
over
it
the
is.
place.
It's all over the place. You can
It,
get
it,
it
it,
all over the world.
in
So,
fact, you can get it by closing your eyes and thinking.
right,
You say, all you have to do 3 times, Courtney on Health,
right.
Courtney
It's
on
the
Health, Courtney on
it's
Health.
like the Vulcan mind meld. So
Anyway,
anyway, yeah. Hi, Malcolm, and hi, Courtney, and welcome to
hi.
Courtney on Health, a Zoomcast series about how to get through these lingering COVID-19 times. And oh man, I thought we were kind of near the end of this. But we can use tips on nutrition, and we need to exercise. And all this is given by Courtney Gravenese, who's a registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area, but this goes again way beyond, and she'll help you guide you on a path to wellness and health. So in line with sort of this topic today, found this kind of cute poem. It's called Healthy Food Hero by Della Perry. And here it goes. I like fruit. I'll eat it all day. My mom says it keeps the doctor away. I like vegetables. I have them for tea. My mom says they are good for me, even peas. I like meat, fish, and cheese. My mom says they make muscles like these, because muscles. I like bread, cereals, and rice. My mom says they are starchy, but I think they are nice. I like yogurt and milk at home. My mom says they are good for your bones. The doctor advises eat a balanced diet. Then you will become a healthy food hero. We need food heroes, and a healthy food hero is Courtney, actually, because she knows all this great stuff. So now I'm thinking, when my mom said to clean your plate or no dessert, was that a good thing? She also said chew your food well and eat slowly, which I believe is a good thing. So how much should we eat, and what should we eat to satiate our hunger, yet keep our weight in check? Satiety is a term used to explain, I don't even know if I got that right, the feeling of fullness and loss of appetite that happens after eating. Filling foods possess certain qualities, such as the tendency to be high in fiber or protein and have a low energy density. Additionally, these foods tend to be whole, single ingredient foods, not highly processed foods. Hara hachi bu is a Japanese term meaning eat until you're 80% full. It originated in the city of Okinawa, where people use this advice as a way to control their eating habits. Interestingly enough, they have one of the lowest rates of illness from heart disease, cancer, and stroke, and a fairly long life expectancy. So, Courtney, is eating a few less bites a good way to reduce calories and stay satiated?
Well, the short answer is yes, but many people struggle with that magical, right, process. Like, how do you do it? How do you eat less, right? If we could all like bottle that, in terms of the United States and our overweight and obesity rates, we might be sitting in a slightly better place. So today's segment is really to help anybody who's trying to maintain weight that they've lost, trying to keep it off, or somebody who's trying really hard to lose some weight and is struggling with that, can't do it, or has been trying many different plans. So hopefully this will give you some tricks, really tapping into the body's amazing feedback system of hunger and satiety. So you did have that word right. I'm saying it's satiety, and basically it's just a word that means fullness. Okay, so no question, and again, this is not about being the skinniest that you can be, but there's no question that worldwide, but because we have such a tremendous issue in our country with disease that's specifically associated with being overweight or obese, we need all the tricks that we can get, all the education we can put out there to help people from all different areas, all different parts of the country, all different economic backgrounds to try and lose some weight. If people are really struggling on a budget, Sometimes some of these, first of all, it's hard to pay, a nutritionist or a registered dietitian if you don't have any, coverage for it. So they rely a lot on the information that they're getting from, a wide variety of sources. Sometimes those sources are friends, sometimes it's a colleague or a coworker. A lot of times it's what they're pulling down, off of the internet. Some of it's good. A lot of it is very, very confusing. So I think what would be a good message to get out is trying to really get back in touch with your body's ability to cue hunger and to cue fullness. So we're going to talk a little bit about Nutrition 101, those hormones that we have that trigger both of those things, fullness and hunger. So there are a variety of them. The ones that most people have heard of, I don't know if you guys have heard of them before, are leptin. You guys heard of leptin?
Yeah.
And the other one is ghrelin. It sounds like gremlin. It's not, it's ghrelin. So these are two of our appetite regulating hormones that exist. So what you want to try and do is tap into those foods that help trigger the hormone, which happens to be leptin, that sends a message to our body that says, you know what, I'm good, I'm full, I don't need any more to eat. On the other side of that, you want to try and this is really a little bit trickier to do, turn down that hormone that says, you know what, I'm super, super, hungry, let me eat a little bit more, which is ghrelin. Some other hormones that people may or may not have heard of, but that we're going to talk about some foods that are really going to kick in that satiety. There's a hormone called CCK, cholecystokinin. Okay, I'm going to have all of this on the website. You can look it up if you want to, but you really don't need to. I'm just trying to give the information so that you understand that there are actually hormones that regulate and guide how much food we eat. So let's hold off on foods for a second and let's talk about those things that can actually monkey with that beautiful system. Okay, so we've got this system of hormones in our body and it's a feedback loop, right? So some of these hormones are triggered in the gut. They send the message to the hypothalamus in your brain and it's this feedback, right? So I'm hungry, I'm full, I'm good. And that's what in theory is supposed to keep us from overeating. We know that unfortunately in people who are overweight or obese, you can have something called leptin resistance, which is not that different than something you may have heard of called insulin resistance. So your body is producing that leptin, that hormone that's supposed to say, yeah, I'm good. But unfortunately, it's not getting to the brain. It's not firing there. So you keep eating, you keep overeating. So we have data now over the last decade or so that really seems to suggest that unfortunately folks who are obese or overweight have an additional issue to work with because they do have leptin, but it's just not reaching where it needs to reach in order to turn off that hunger mechanism.
I have a question for you. Is it possible to psychologically stimulate these hormones to come in? Because it's an example. Again, you were talking about when you're poor and you're on a budget. And I noticed, like, when I was on a budget and I'm going out on a date or going out with my wife, we would share a plate. Instead of both having individual dinners, we would share a main course. And I found out that I was satisfied sharing the main course, having like half of the amount of food.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's almost, we don't eat because we're hungry. We eat because we want to fill our stomachs and feel gorged. Like we're not happy unless we leave the table and we have to open up our belts. But most of the time, if you can, control yourself, you can eat where, okay, I'm not hungry anymore, I'm full, without getting to that point where I have to open up my belt. But am I triggering these hormones psychologically?
Well, what we're doing is something called proper visual cueing, which thank you for bringing up, the comment, because it's one of the things that is a trick to try, right? We all know that for most of us, food being out, this food accepted, right? Because this is generally helpful foods. But if you're really struggling or you're really trying to prevent yourself from overeat, what's the last thing that you should be doing? Sitting down in front of basically a buffet of a variety of different foods. Why? It's not your gut telling you I'm hungry. Chances are not, unless of course you're ravenous. It's the visual cueing that exists. It's that psychological pull of let me eat that food. So that's why it's so important for everybody. I think whenever I'm working with a client or a group of clients, the first thing I ask them, because we're not cookie cutter, we're not all created the same, right? Is to identify what kind of eater you are. And what I mean by that is, are you a volume eater? Meaning that when you sit down to something, if somebody's going to give you a teeny little bit of this and a teeny little bit of that, it's just not going to work for you. You need a lot of it. So are you a volume eater? Are you somebody who can get by with smaller portion sizes, but don't give them a bunch of, the veggies are great, but I want a piece of, chicken, or I want a piece of, steak, and is that the kind of eater you are? Are you somebody who does most of your eating, when you are alone and maybe you're in front of a television set? We know that people who eat in front of computer screens, television sets, any device are going to consume more calories than if you are not eating in front of a device. So it's super important to identify first what kind of eater you are, to figure out whether this, the tricks that we're going to talk about today, which one is going to work best for them. So you're right, Malcolm, if people can get into the habit of splitting something that's on the larger side, or even a dessert, I tell all my clients, chances are most people will do just fine splitting any size dessert. All they're really looking for is that little bit of sweet. They don't need big.
The taste.
They just want the taste of it, but that's a habit, and that's a habit that needs a little bit of work. It's like a muscle, right? You got to condition it. And some people get there quicker, but some people need a little bit more of a runway and need a little bit more encouragement in order to get there.
I don't know why my head is going to, when you're saying all this and control and portions, I'm thinking of the hot dog eating contest in Coney Island, where they just gorge themselves, and these people, this is their jobs. They eat in food contests, and it's like, I don't even want to go there. But for some reason, when you were talking about portions, I just was thinking, 88, whatever, how many hot dogs he ate. But it's pretty crazy when you think about it. So portion is important. Is also in terms of how you eat. Chewing, like I said, my mom would go chew your food, or eat slower. Don't just rush it down. Are those things that are important as well?
Oh, absolutely. So some of the things that monkey with those hormones that we just spoke about would be overriding the system. And what I mean by that is eating so quickly. And I have to be honest with you, I mean, living and I don't know if it's the same way out in LA, but in New York, everything's fast, right? We eat fast, we talk fast. So for many of us, simply slowing down and allowing that beautiful feedback system that does exist in almost all of us to actually occur. So if you just, and I know it's an exaggeration, but putting your fork down in between each mouthful so that you chew, slow it down, you actually allow that time to occur. I've heard numbers from it takes 10 minutes up to about 20 minutes for that actual process to occur, to get the message, your body gets the message, I'm full. But unfortunately, many of us eat way past that. So we get to that, oh my gosh, I'm so full, I can't eat another bite. So I've heard, cut back 20% of what you're eating, but some people visually need to look down. Sometimes I'll tell clients, and you got to balance the waste versus, the health benefits. Leave a little bit on your plate, right? The Clean Plate Club is finished. Allow the normal triggering of those hormones that keep you fuller to actually occur. Certainly foods that are, and many of us know these already, the big filling foods, things that contain a lot of moisture. So no surprise here. We have vegetables, we have fruits, making use of leafy green vegetables, soups, broths, seltzers, teas, things that are going to expand that gut, your stomach, and that expansion also triggers that hormone. So that's why oftentimes you're here, have a big glass of water or have an extremely low calorie volume food like that in order to get that fullness hormone firing so that you end up eating less in the long run. There's actually a researcher, she's a PhD, Barbara Rolls, who's done a lot of research in the whole area. It's called volumetrics. She's got books about it that really taps into, particularly for somebody who is a volume eater. And remember, that's somebody who needs a lot, right? They need a lot of food, giving them options like the things you should be choosing so that you don't get into too much trouble calorically, but you're getting that volume that you need. No surprise, it's foods high in fiber, lots of veg, legumes, things like that.
Yeah, but you know what excuse me, but you know what I've heard various things about pro and con about drinking water with eating with meals. Some people say you should because it fills you up. And others say, no, it's no good to have too much water because it dissolves the enzymes in your stomach and it prevents you from proper digestion. What is your take on that?
Well, generally, you want to trigger the that expansion in your stomach before you start to eat. So the best time to have that low calorie fluid or a glass of water would be before you start to eat. But let's address the issue about the enzymes. Those enzymes are pretty potent. So you're going to have to be putting back a lot of water in there to disrupt. And keep in mind that not all enzymes are being secreted in the stomach. This is why it's important to and I thank you for asking that question, because sometimes you're only getting part of the science when you read it, when you get information on the internet. Enzymes aren't all produced in your stomach. Some are produced further down in the digestive tract. It's down in your intestine. Primary enzyme for carbohydrates starts in your mouth. That's in saliva. So certainly the best time in order to trigger those satiety hormones would be before you eat, but you don't need to necessarily worry about, disrupting your body's ability to digest food. Some would argue that by putting down your fork and having a sip of a low-calorie beverage, you're actually, forcing yourself to eat more slowly, which is something to certainly consider. Before I go into some of the other foods, and I know we did a sleep segment, many weeks back, but we have more and more, data now that's really leading to sleep disruption being one of the key factors in this altering of our satiety hormones. So I think if you all remember, we mentioned that chronically sleep deprived individuals have an issue with these hormones being fired on the right, when they should be. So unfortunately, if you're chronically sleep deprived, the hormone that says I'm full is suppressed. The hormone that says I'm hungry is fired up, not what you need when you're trying to lose some weight or manage some weight. So there are many things that affect our body's ability to have these hormones work the right way. But I have to, we want to make sure we're mentioning all different areas so that people know they can look to these things like, well, you know what, my sleep has really been, not what it should. So definitely take that into consideration when you're looking at all of these different possible options or things that could be affecting your hormone level.
Okay, I have a
So
quick question.
what?
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to
Next.
jump in because
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to what are kind of some of the tricks that you could do to stay full and consume less calories. I mean, what do you suggest if you want to be satiated, but you don't want to go overboard? And I always think to Monty Python's One More Bite and Life of Brian. But anyway, see, did you watch?
Oh my gosh, it's Whopper thing.
Yeah, well, I wanted to use that on my opening, but I didn't. I'm glad I got to bring it up. But anyway, what do you say? What's your recommendation?
So, okay, so obviously we've got our, our veg, things that are high fiber, high moisture that are going to expand that stomach. That's what you're looking for. Nuts, key. If you're allergic to them, this is not going to be a healthy option for you. But nuts in particular have been studied in terms of not only just leptin, but that CCK that we mentioned, which is a very potent appetite suppressing hormone, do a great job of, really, helping you stay fuller. Now, remember I said before, you got to identify what kind of eater you are first, right? Because I've got clients, it's like, okay, fantastic, I love nuts. You know, you can't sit down to a trough of them and expect that to really work. So if you're somebody who can get by with a little bit, I'm telling you, you know, handful of nuts, about a quarter cup serving size, any nut really, whatever you like. Could be peanuts, could be, I've got mix here, it could be, you know, obviously walnuts have omega-3 fatty acids in them. A great job. So a breakfast in the morning with maybe, if you normally like cereal and you're finding that cereal isn't holding it for you, which makes perfect sense, by the way, because, you know, if there's no fiber in there, and there's nothing really in there, there's no protein, there's not much fat in there, carbohydrates are just going to quickly leave you and you're going to be hungry a couple of hours later on. Well, enter a handful of nuts, put that in the mix, and you've just bought yourself probably a few more hours between bite to bite, which is really going to be helpful in the long run. You could do it with chia seed, you can do it with flaxseed, but there's something, remember the whole chewing mechanism slows down how much food you can put back at a time, which is why raw carrot versus blended carrot in a smoothie. So, you know, slowing down that process. So nuts work, seeds work, those kinds of options, any kinds of the fluids that we were mentioning before. Generally, your protein foods, whether they be plant-based or animal-based, and your fats are going to fire off those satiating hormones very, very effectively. So if you can at every meal, and it doesn't have to be a lot, I feel like the message gets out, more protein, more protein. It doesn't have to be a big serving size. It can be an egg. It can be 6 to 8 ounces of yogurt. It can be, you know, if you don't do animal products, it can be 3 to 4 ounces of tofu. It can be a small amount, but the presence of that either protein or fat is going to trigger those hormones that say to you, your body, I am full now. Now that's not, I'm not carbohydrate bashing. I want to make sure that that's not the message that's getting out there. But, and I have a story that I'm thinking of. I had a client, she was doing so well. She was eating a lot of salads, but she said, I have a big salad at lunch, but I'm hungry like a couple of hours later on. So, you know, I did a little teasing and we figure out, and she was indeed having a fabulous salad at lunch. So it was a lot of greens, there was carrots, she had onions, she had a lot of things in there, but there was no fat, there was no protein. She was just using, you know, a little bit of vinegar in there. So although certainly not an unhealthy lunch, she would be better served in her case by adding a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein to help her stay fuller longer. So she wasn't at the vending machine when we were going into offices 2 hours later. So you have to sort of figure out what kind of eater you are, and what's in each of your meals. Grazing, I think for some people ended up shooting a lot of people in the foot, because they're unable to keep track of the calories that they were eating throughout the day, because it was a nibble here, a nibble there. It doesn't really feel like you ate a meal because you didn't really sit down to a meal. So again, we all eat a little bit differently. I'm not telling anybody exactly how to eat. These are simply tips and tricks. And all I'm suggesting is if you've been struggling to lose weight, and the grazing method has not worked for you, it might be that you haven't given your body the ability to actually get hungry. You want to really get those hormones firing so that you learn, I'm hungry, I'm full, I know when to stop.
I have a question for you, because you're talking about losing weight, but losing weight, let's say, is not my necessarily issue. And I know you can't spot reduce, but you know, as I got older, I seem to collect weight around the stomach, which they say is no good. Is there a way of eating food that would attack the fat content in your body, or the fat? You know, I do exercise, but I do have the, you know, as I say, the little tire around there that no matter how much weight I lose is still there. Is there anything that concentrates on that weight?
Well, you're right. You can't spot reduce necessarily, but I would suggest that you take, and I think you eat healthfully, and I would give this recommendation to anybody if they were asking me, you want to make sure that you've got some healthy fats on board throughout the day, not just a one-shot deal. I would really caution somebody who would ask that question. I know intermittent fasting is a popular trend in eating right now. But two things, I wonder whether it is the best approach necessarily for everybody, particularly somebody who is trying to, maybe minimize some of the, the fat that's in their body. And secondly, as we age, I think we talked about this before, we lose muscle mass. And there's some preliminary data coming out now that suggests that the intermittent fasting might not be the best option for older adults, because it's actually breaking down lean mass more so than other meal plans. So again, take a look at the types of how you're eating, make sure you're not going very long periods without food. And then the other thing, make sure you're getting the healthy dose of fats in there. And then of course, the other side of that is, I know you exercise, you got to get the exercise in there, because that's going to be the one that preserves that lean muscle mass and, can help you carve out a little bit more muscle in your abdominal area to prevent the deposit of.
Well, if I worked out as much when I was in my 20s and 30s, I probably could, try out for Mr. America, because, working out with the
No,
weights.
it's Miss America.
Miss America. But I mean, now it doesn't seem, I don't seem to, well, I can't get the mass, but I'm not looking for mass actually. But I can't get the muscle tone as I did when I was younger.
Right. So for a lot of people, both of those things have to be taken into consideration. You certainly want to make sure you're getting enough. And this is for anybody. So more reasons why you want to make sure, again, it doesn't have to be a ton. You want to make sure you're getting adequate protein, plant-based or animal-based, at every meal to meet that need for muscle maintenance. And then of course, if you're combining that protein in your diet with exercise, work, it'll create more muscle. But you have to have a minimum amount on board. That doesn't mean you need to go bananas with a lot, but you got to pay attention to it. And I think for a lot of people, they may get total intake throughout the protein in the day, adequate amounts, but they're just not getting it at each meal. So for some people, again, for a lot of reasons, one, to preserve that muscle mass, and two, because you want to fire off those hormones to say I'm fuller. You'll do better with a little bit of protein on board. It does a far better job than just carbohydrates alone. Even carbohydrates that are volume foods like greens, vegetables, broccoli, things like that, and legumes. So you want to, make sure that you're always trying to pay a little bit of attention to that. Doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be, again, doesn't have to be animal-based, but you want to make sure you're getting a little bit in at each mealtime. So what's that?
So that's good. That's good. Sounds good.
So we mentioned the nuts, we mentioned, healthy fats in there. So obviously something like a walnut is going to embrace both because it's a high protein food. It also happens to be a plant version of omega-3 fatty acid in there, but you can do that with fatty fish. You can do it with tempeh, you can do it with tofu. There are healthier fats in the soybean. That's what makes the soybean such an excellent source of protein. A, it's a complete protein, and B, it's a healthy source of those unsaturated fats. So you're getting a nice combination of the two of those all in one meal option. So, contemplating those different types of, things, look at your day. Identify, where it's summertime, we're not really thinking about soups, but soups, are a great way to A, sneak in some protein, and B, have a lot of fluid on board, which will certainly help expand that stomach, trigger that hormone, and hopefully feel a little bit more satisfied with far fewer calories in the long run. There's some research about green tea. I know all teas, again, are good because they contribute to hydration, but in particular, remember the different types of teas. We did our tea segment. So green tea is that mostly unfermented So very young tea leaves, but there seems to be some decent research that suggests that it might be beneficial in terms of a little bit more, maybe revving up your metabolic engine a little bit. It's certainly worth a try. I wouldn't hang your entire meal plan on just green tea, but if you're looking for tools, okay, to add to that sort of whole health and wellness and weight management plan, maybe add green tea to your option. Cacao.
I don't remember. Is green tea decaffeinated?
No, it is not.
You have to
It
get
has caffeine in it.
decaffeinated.
Yeah, it's obviously not as caffeinated as a cup of coffee, but there is a little bit of caffeine. So you would either want to front load it in the day, or if you're, just be careful if you're struggling with sleep. I wouldn't necessarily have it in the evening if you think it's going to, be an issue in terms of getting to sleep, or staying asleep. Cacao nibs, which are, it's the very immature, unsweetened, cocoa from the cacao plant. Again, slightly metabolic activity, meaning that if you eat it, it might help that engine burn a little bit more efficiently. So you could add something like that. It's not widely available. So again, I realize that it's not an option for everybody. But again, we're just trying to look at all those things you could possibly do to help stay fuller longer, slow down, increase your fluid intake, try to add protein and healthy fats like a nut, some kind of nut, into some of the meals. Lots of a variety of those green leafy vegetables and any vegetable, and fruits, for example. People, we know we got to be careful with fruit because people can tend to overconsume, and you just have to watch calories from all sources, right? So all of these tricks throughout the day may help you really get back in touch with my fullness. Where am I? I've often recommended, and I know this is going to sound a little crazy, for people who are really struggling, and it's like, I'm never hungry. I'm never hungry, and I'm never full. Like in either camp, I'll ask them to stop looking at the clock for eating. And I'll say, for a couple of days, clearly don't do this when you're on vacation. Don't do it when you're planning to have lunch with somebody or dinner with somebody. But for a couple of days, eat simply when your gut tells you to eat. Forget the clock. Forget the time that you get up in the morning, okay? Eat when your body says you're hungry, okay? Slow down. Stop when you think you've gotten full. Put it away, leave the kitchen, and then don't eat again until you feel hungry. And it's like, well, why? It helps get with again.
Yeah, Courtney, it's nice to say, it's nice to say, forget about the clock while you're eating. But the clock, we just had 30 minutes of my timer went off.
And we had a slight freeze also, Courtney. So the last, I'm not sure if you want to repeat what you just said, because it froze up a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, it was to try, again, if you've been, you don't feel like you either really hungry or you get really full, to not eat by the clock, and just for a couple of days, try and eat really hungry. And then
when you're hungry,
that can help kickstart it.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, it's
well, I
time
just
to
want
say
one
goodbye.
thing. One more thing, Courtney.
One more thing, the long goodbye.
You said soup is not generally in the summer, but we have like gazpacho, which is delicious. So I'm going to ask you for a good recipe for that.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Maybe you can put it online. Yeah.
So, gazpacho, you got it.
Okay, that's
cold
it.
soup.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Anyway, guys, thanks. It was very, very educational. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. For more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, which is Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness. Visit her website, CourtneyGravities.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and the Many Shades of Green.com. Courtney on Health, smart, sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness. We'll catch you next time.
And eat healthy.
Eat healthy.
Bye.